We had our stuff. We asked if we could please at least leave it in the lobby, so we were out. It's Dolly, and today I'm excited to be sharing my life.
Dolly Parton's life has always revolved around two constants: her music and her unwavering devotion to her husband, Carl Dean. For nearly 60 years, their marriage remained one of the most private yet enduring love stories in the spotlight. So, when Carl passed away in 2025, many expected Dolly to honor him with a public, heartfelt farewell. Instead, she chose a quiet, intimate service with only her closest family present, and one absence did not go unnoticed. Rumors swirled about why Dolly left her out. Was it a matter of privacy, protection, or something much deeper connected to Carl's final years? After months of silence, Dolly finally opened up, and her explanation not only revealed the reason behind her decision, but also offered a glimpse into the profound love and heartbreaking loss that marked their last chapter together. The little girl with a big voice. Dolly Parton came into the world in 1946, in a tiny Tennessee town called Locust Ridge. Her parents were just teenagers when they married, and over time, they went on to raise 12 children. Growing up with 11 siblings meant Dolly had to find a way to stand out, and from an early age, she discovered her voice could do just that. Once she learned to sing and strum a guitar, her mother quickly noticed the spark of talent in her daughter. Whenever visitors stopped by, Dolly's mom would proudly ask her to perform a song. Life in a crowded home was never easy, but the love and care from her parents left a lasting mark on Dolly, inspiring countless songs later in her career. From the beginning, Dolly's voice carried dreams bigger than the small town she grew up in. She wrote her first song at just 5 years old, singing into a tin can on the family porch, while her chickens and farm animals became her first audience. By 6, she was already singing in church. And when her uncle Bill Owens bought her a guitar a few years later, Dolly's path into country music became clearer. Bill encouraged her passion, even taking her on trips to Nashville, where she got a taste of the city's booming country scene. By the time Dolly was 10, she landed her first real opportunity. After a successful audition, she was invited onto the Cass Walker Show, where she performed for $5 a show. For a small-town girl, that kind of encouragement meant everything. It gave her the confidence to keep chasing her dreams. At just 12 years old, she began working on her first record, Puppy Love. But making it to the studio in Louisiana was an ordeal. Dolly and her grandmother took a bus for the long trip, only to get off at the wrong stop. Lost and overwhelmed, her grandmother broke down in tears. Dolly, still only a child herself, had to summon the courage to ask a station clerk for help. They ended up spending the night in the bus station before finally finding their way. By the time they reached Louisiana, Dolly's determination hadn't wavered. She walked into the studio the very next day and started recording. The following year, Dolly experienced a milestone that most aspiring country artists only dream about. At just 13 years old, she was invited to perform at the Grand Ole Opry. That night, she not only stepped onto one of the most famous stages in country music, but also met Johnny Cash for the first time. To a young girl from Locust Ridge, seeing Cash perform live had already been overwhelming. She often said that the first time she saw him on stage, she was frozen in place, completely captivated. That night at the Opry, Cash introduced Dolly to the crowd before she launched into George Jones's "You Gotta Be My Baby." The audience was hooked immediately. They demanded an encore, then another, and another. Dolly gave them everything she had, performing her original song and 3 encores before leaving the stage to roaring applause. For a 13-year-old, it was nothing short of extraordinary. Her admiration for Johnny Cash never really faded. In later years, she admitted that watching him perform had been one of the most powerful and even sensual experiences of her life, joking that he was the one who first taught her about sex appeal. While there was never a romance between them, Cash was older and married, Dolly carried those early impressions with her as both an inside joke and a reminder of what first set her heart on fire for country music. The the complicated bond Dolly never denied. Most people wouldn't think of a laundromat as a romantic place, but that's exactly where Dolly Parton met Carl Dean on her very first day in Nashville. She had graduated high school just the night before, packed her bags, and left home with 2 boyfriends behind her, determined to focus on music rather than love. But life has a funny way of surprising people. For Carl, it was instant. The moment he saw her, he knew she was the woman he wanted to marry. Dolly wasn't looking for a relationship, but she felt the spark too. Instead of going on a date right away, she invited him to visit her at her aunt and uncle's home where she was staying. He came back every day for a week, and soon they were inseparable. Their first official outing together was unusual by most standards. Carl didn't take Dolly to dinner or a movie. He introduced her to his parents. What could have scared some people away didn't faze Dolly at all. The connection between them only grew stronger. By 1966, Dolly's music career was beginning to gain traction, and her manager, Fred Foster, thought marriage might slow her momentum. He warned her that tying the knot would make promoting her career more difficult. But Dolly was never one to let someone else dictate her choices. On May 30th, 1966, she and Carl quietly married at a small church away from Nashville. The ceremony was simple, attended only by Dolly's mother, the pastor, and the pastor's wife. That intimate beginning set the tone for their lifelong relationship, deeply personal, fiercely private, and away from the spotlight. Right after the wedding, Dolly released her debut album, Hello, I'm Dolly, which launched her into country music stardom. Even as fame surrounded her, Carl stayed true to his private nature. He avoided public attention, only ever appearing beside her at one industry event back in 1966, during a BMI dinner celebrating her early success. From then on, he supported her from the sidelines, never seeking recognition for himself. Around this same time, Dolly's career reached a pivotal moment. She began a professional partnership with television star Porter Wagoner. Porter was already a household name, hosting The Porter Wagoner Show, which featured his music and a female girl singer who sang duets with him. Dolly had first connected with Porter through songwriting, when she was asked to write material for his then lead singer, Norma Rae. At the time, Dolly was known as much for her songwriting as for her singing, selling songs to other artists to keep her career afloat. Porter had noticed Dolly performing around Nashville, and when Norma Rae decided to leave the show after 7 years to get married, he didn't hesitate to call Dolly. He invited her to his office, told her to bring her guitar, and offered her the role of his new singing partner. For Dolly, this was a career-defining opportunity. The exposure from appearing weekly on national television meant her voice could reach millions of households. But stepping into Norma's shoes wasn't easy. Audiences were attached to the singer they had watched for years, and Dolly's high, youthful voice was a sharp contrast. During her very first taping, the crowd even heckled her during the commercial break. The criticism could have ended her stint before it began, but Porter stood firmly behind her. When the cameras came back on, he defended Dolly to the audience and doubled down on his support by giving her even more screen time than Norma had ever received. Porter was convinced the best way to win people over was simple: let them hear Dolly's voice again and again until they couldn't ignore its power. And the gamble worked. Little by little, their duets became the standout moments of the show, and audiences started to see Dolly as more than just a newcomer. She was a star in the making. The program gave her the big break she needed, but it also opened the door to one of the toughest chapters of her career. As Dolly's fame grew, tension behind the scenes mounted. Porter was unhappy about her rise and became determined to keep her tied to the show. When he couldn't, resentment boiled over. Their arguments grew sharper toward the end of her run, and when Dolly finally left in 1974, Porter lashed out in the press, spreading harsh words and criticism. He even sued her, launching a feud that dragged on for decades. One of the areas Porter used to attack Dolly was her image. He condemned her for appearing in Playboy magazine, saying that no woman in country music before her would have dared to do such a thing. Dolly, however, stood firm. She insisted she was simply being true to herself, and posing for Playboy was just another expression of that. Porter also went as far as to accuse her of being untrustworthy, claiming she was the kind of person who would betray her own family. But Dolly's marriage to Carl Dean told a very different story. They had been together long before her partnership with Porter, and despite Carl's preference to stay out of the spotlight, their marriage remained steady and loving for decades. For years, Porter maintained that Dolly had been fired from his show, while Dolly insisted she left on her own terms. The truth may never be fully known, but what was clear was that she had outgrown her role as his sidekick. Dolly wanted independence, and she was right to believe her career would thrive beyond Porter's stage. Still, their professional relationship didn't end immediately. Even after she left the show, Porter continued to produce some of her most successful records. But by the late 1970s, his career had started to decline, while Dolly's soared to new heights. Jealousy crept in, and soon their working relationship collapsed completely. Porter turned bitter, slandering Dolly publicly, and eventually suing her for nearly $3 million. He claimed she owed him for broken contracts and even for the lavish gifts he had given her while they worked together. Those extravagant gifts fueled speculation that their relationship might have been more than professional. The lawsuit shocked Dolly. She admitted she struggled to raise the money, eventually paying Porter $1 million in installments. Many believed she gave him more than he deserved, but Dolly explained that it was out of respect for everything he had once done for her. Rumors of an affair between the two have swirled for years. Dolly always denied it, pointing out that fans love to imagine romance whenever a male and female performer share the stage. Still, questions lingered. Some of Porter's gifts seemed far too personal for a co-worker, and he had a well-known reputation for affairs. Dolly, married at the time and still married today, was open about having a flexible relationship with her husband Carl, which only added to speculation. Whatever the truth, their bond was complicated. Porter was not just a rival and critic, but also a mentor and champion. He gave Dolly a platform when the audience was skeptical of her, stood by her side through early struggles, and helped produce many of her best-loved songs. For Dolly, that was reason enough to forgive him, and perhaps why she chose to honor his role in her journey, even after years of conflict. The wardrobe malfunction that shocked Nashville. Long before the world started using the phrase wardrobe malfunction, after Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake's infamous Super Bowl halftime show, Dolly Parton nearly gave the country music industry its own version of the term 2 decades earlier. The year was 1978, and Dolly was at the Country Music Association Awards, nominated for the biggest prize of the night, Entertainer of the Year. For her, this was more than just another award show. A decade earlier, in 1968, she had first walked across that same stage alongside Porter Wagoner when the two won Vocal Group of the Year. Back then, she was still soft-spoken and deferential, letting Porter deliver the acceptance speech while she stood quietly by his side. But now, in 1978, she was a household name and one of the brightest stars in country music. This time, she would be stepping onto that stage alone, ready to claim the spotlight. As the moment drew closer, disaster struck. Just as the nominees were being announced, Dolly's gown suddenly split, tearing straight down the middle. For a split second, she froze. There was no way she could possibly walk on stage with her dress falling apart. Panic set in until she noticed Kenny Rogers' wife, Marianne, sitting nearby with a fur stole draped around her shoulders. Dolly quickly asked to borrow it and clutched it to her body just in time. Moments later, her name was called as the winner. When she stepped onto the stage, the audience had no idea what had just happened backstage. With her trademark wit, Dolly lightened the mood by joking that she had actually been hoping she wouldn't win. At first, the crowd was confused, but then, she explained, she had a special gown made for the occasion, one she had wanted to wear while accepting the award. That was true, right up until it ripped just before her name was announced. Only then had she started wishing she wouldn't be called to the stage. Once the crowd caught on, laughter filled the room. Dolly sealed the moment with a homespun punchline, reminding everyone that her father always warned her about trying to stuff too much into too small a space. Years later, she opened up about the incident in an interview with People magazine. She admitted that while the dress had been beautiful, she could tell the fabric was fragile the moment she put it on. She even wondered if it would hold, since she always liked her clothes to fit snug. That night proved her right. But in true Dolly fashion, she didn't let the embarrassment overshadow the moment. Instead, she laughed it off, deciding the mishap made the entire show more entertaining. After all, Dolly Parton has always known how to turn even the most awkward moments into unforgettable performances. The love story nobody believed was real. For their 50th wedding anniversary, Dolly Parton and Carl Dean finally got the dream wedding they never had back in 1966. This time, with decades of success behind them, the ceremony was far more extravagant. It was also the first time many fans truly got a glimpse of Dolly's elusive husband. Dolly had convinced Carl to let professional photos from the event be released publicly, with the promise that all proceeds would go to charity. Along with the photos came something even rarer, a written message from Carl himself. In it, he shared that the moment he first saw Dolly, he knew he was going to marry her, and he didn't waste any time making it happen. Before this anniversary, there had long been whispers that Carl Dean wasn't real at all. Some fans believed Dolly had invented him to shield her private life from tabloid speculation. His absence from the spotlight only fueled those rumors. But in 2016, Carl's statement and appearance silenced the doubts for most people. To drive the point home even further, he later gave an interview to Taste of Country, where he confirmed their marriage and revealed, once again, that he instantly knew Dolly was the one. For Dolly, having her husband's words out in public was a relief. It proved once and for all that Carl Dean was not a myth. Still, many wondered why Carl wasn't by Dolly's side at concerts, red carpets, or award shows. The truth was simple. He preferred a quiet life, and Dolly respected that. From the very beginning, they agreed that Carl would stay out of the spotlight, and Dolly would pursue her career freely. Dolly often credits her mother's advice for this balance. Her mother taught her to always keep part of her life private. That boundary became the foundation of their lasting marriage. Carl's privacy never bothered Dolly, just as her fame never bothered him. He wasn't jealous of her career, and she didn't push him to change his ways. Dolly often said that what worked for them was acceptance. Carl enjoyed his peace at home, while she thrived on stage. Over time, Dolly got used to keeping him out of the public eye, and her strong faith helped her stay comfortable with that choice. Convincing Carl to step into the public eye for their anniversary wasn't easy, but after 2016, he occasionally appeared in small ways. Every now and then, he showed up in Dolly's social media posts, sometimes on holidays like Valentine's Day. Even then, those glimpses remained rare, which made them feel even more special to fans. When speaking about her husband during their 50th anniversary celebrations, Dolly described their relationship as a perfect match. She admitted that they were complete opposites, but that was part of the magic. Their differences kept things interesting, and after so many years, she still never knew what Carl might say next. That unpredictability was one of the things she loved most. One of Dolly's more unexpected revelations came during an interview with Good Morning Britain. She admitted that Carl was never her biggest fan when it came to her music. His tastes leaned more toward rock bands like Led Zeppelin or the traditional sounds of bluegrass, and in fact, He'd only seen her perform live a few times, but that didn't mean he wasn't supportive. Dolly explained that Carl was always proud of her work, even if he wasn't the type to follow her on tour. In truth, their marriage thrived because neither tried to change the other. Dolly embraced the spotlight, while Carl preferred the quiet of home. And rather than pulling them apart, that balance made the moments they shared together even stronger. Now, throughout her career, Dolly Parton has been surrounded by some of the most famous men in entertainment, and naturally, that's fueled plenty of rumors. Her husband, Carl Dean, not only had to live with Dolly's demanding touring schedule, but also the constant gossip linking her to other men. Dolly has always insisted she's been faithful, but she's never shied away from admitting she's had crushes on some of her co-stars, men like Burt Reynolds and Sylvester Stallone. In the early 1980s, Dolly stepped into the world of Hollywood musicals. In 1982, she starred alongside Burt Reynolds in The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. The movie was a major success, but behind the scenes, Dolly admitted that she had a real crush on Reynolds. Rumors of an affair spread quickly, much like they had years earlier with Porter Wagoner. Dolly denied anything romantic ever happened, but she did enjoy filming her on-screen love scenes with Burt. In fact, she and Carl would sometimes laugh about seeing tabloid headlines at the grocery store linking her to Reynolds. Carl, over time, learned to let go of jealousy. Dolly often explained that while she flirted publicly, it was always in good fun. 2 years later, Dolly paired up with another unlikely singing partner, Sylvester Stallone, in the film Rhinestone. The movie may not have been a box office hit, but for Dolly, it was a personal highlight. At the time, she was struggling with depression and health issues, but Stallone's sense of humor and dedication to fitness helped lift her spirits. Their chemistry was undeniable, both in interviews and on screen. In fact, Dolly often laughed so hard at his antics that the filmmakers kept some of those genuine moments in the movie. Beyond her movie co-stars, Dolly also shared a long and close friendship with Kenny Rogers. The two collaborated on music and toured together for decades, and their chemistry often led people to assume there was more to their relationship. Dolly was quick to shut down those rumors, insisting they never crossed that line. She admitted she loved him dearly, but saw him more like family. Kenny, who married 5 times throughout his life, may have tried his luck once or twice, but Dolly teased that she could never catch him between wives. Even Kenny's ex-wives confirmed that whatever sparks people saw on stage stayed strictly professional. While Dolly brushed off most of the rumors about her love life, she once confessed to something much deeper. A relationship she described as an affair of the heart. It happened with her bandleader, Greg Perry. She was drawn to his intelligence and fell hard for him, though the feelings weren't fully mutual. Their connection was so strong that it even pushed Dolly's best friend, Judy Ogle, to re-enlist in the military, just to escape feeling like the third wheel. The situation took a painful turn when Dolly asked Greg to help her write music for the stage version of The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. While he was musically gifted, the pressures of the business side became overwhelming, and he eventually quit, leaving Dolly devastated. The heartbreak cut so deep that Dolly sank into a dark place, even considering ending her life. She later shared that one night, while holding a gun, she was stopped by the sudden presence of her dog, Popeye. She believed his appearance was a spiritual sign reminding her she still had reasons to live. That moment pulled her back, and she has credited Popeye with saving her life. The pain from that affair inspired her song, What a Heartache, and Dolly has said she never had another extramarital relationship after that experience. Interestingly, Dolly also admitted that Carl never knew about her emotional entanglement with Greg. Despite her flirtations and crushes, Dolly has always described Carl as the love of her life, the one person she could never risk losing. Now, even though there have never been stories of Carl Dean straying from his marriage, Dolly Parton has shared that her husband has a light-hearted crush on actress Jennifer Aniston. Dolly enjoys teasing him about it, but Carl has never acted on it in any serious way. With Dolly's fame and fortune, he could easily have tried to meet Jennifer if he really wanted to, but the fact that he never has speaks volumes about his loyalty to Dolly. Ironically, Dolly even worked on the soundtrack for Aniston's Netflix movie Dumplin', yet there's no evidence that Carl and Jennifer ever crossed paths. From the outside, Dolly and Carl might look like complete opposites, but Dolly has often said they share one important trait: a wicked sense of humor. They love to laugh together, and even when arguments come up, they find a way to turn it into a joke. That ability to keep things lighthearted has been one of the cornerstones of their relationship, even if it wouldn't work for everyone. Despite Dolly's global fame, she has always cherished the quiet moments at home with Carl. She loves their evenings together, whether it's over a home-cooked meal or at one of their favorite low-key restaurants. They both enjoy camping, and Carl has never minded the luxurious RV Dolly bought him with her music earnings. While the couple never had children, Dolly embraced her role as godmother to Miley Cyrus, a position that let her shower love on family without changing the way she and Carl lived their lives. Dolly Parton's final goodbye and private funeral to Carl. In 2019, heartbreaking news surfaced that Carl Dean had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. The illness quickly took its toll, leaving both Carl and Dolly facing some of the hardest years of their lives. By 2020, his condition had declined so rapidly that Dolly rarely left his side, fully aware that the end was drawing near for her husband of nearly 6 decades. For much of their marriage, Dolly and Carl had lived with plenty of time apart. She on the road, he at home. But after his diagnosis, Dolly became his primary caregiver. She revealed that Alzheimer's brought on a series of other health complications, including gallbladder problems and a worsening heart condition. His appetite faded, his moods became unpredictable, and his once fiercely independent nature was overshadowed by confusion and disorientation. By then, Carl was nearly housebound, his world shrinking as his health failed. The arrival of the COVID-19 pandemic made matters even more difficult. Concerned for his fragile immune system, Dolly drastically reduced their household staff and even kept family members at a distance. Friends close to her admitted that she feared he wouldn't survive the virus if exposed. Those who knew the situation well described it as a heartbreaking time, one that left Dolly balancing love, worry, and the painful reality that her husband's suffering might only end with his passing. In March 2025, Carl Dean passed away in Nashville at the age of 82. Dolly announced the news with a statement posted to social media, asking for privacy as she and her family grieved. She shared that he would be laid to rest in a private ceremony attended only by immediate family. The message expressed her gratitude for the prayers and sympathy she had received, while also reflecting on the deep love she and Carl had shared for over 60 years. Just 3 days after his passing, Dolly reached out again, this time with a deeply personal message to family, friends, and fans. She thanked them for the outpouring of support, saying the cards, flowers, and kind words had meant the world to her. Though she admitted she couldn't respond to everyone, she wanted people to know their comfort had carried her through those first painful days. She ended her note with a simple but powerful tribute to Carl, reaffirming that her love for him would never fade. In the weeks that followed, Dolly began to share more about her grief and her plans to honor Carl's memory. In May, she told The Independent that she still felt his presence every day. She explained that while part of her was at peace knowing he no longer suffered, the loneliness of his absence remained overwhelming. To move forward, she said she planned to channel her energy into her work, keeping Carl's spirit alive in everything she did. Dolly reflected on the pride Carl had always shown in her career. Even though he preferred staying away from the spotlight, he often reminded her that she was born to be a star. He saw her love for performing as something natural and joyful, even if he only witnessed it from a distance. For Dolly, those words of encouragement remain a source of comfort as she continues her journey without him. Her faith has been another pillar of strength. Speaking to the Associated Press, she shared her belief that she and Carl will one day be reunited. That conviction, rooted in her lifelong faith, gives her hope as she faces life without him. In early June 2025, Dolly marked what would have been their 59th wedding anniversary in a deeply personal way. She visited the little church where they first exchanged vows in 1966, a place she and Carl had returned to together many times over the years. Standing once again on those same church steps, she posed for a photo, quietly honoring both the beginning and the enduring legacy of their love story.